Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional 9-dan Go player. In this video, I'll be showing you one of the semifinal games of the 29th Samsung Cup. Black is LIAN Xiao, and white is Yifei. Okay, in the position we have here, black's group in the top left corner is not 100% safe, so it's potentially not settled. And the white group on the top side is potentially weak. There's a large area on the left side which looks like it could become a large area for white. So that's also an area of interest. I'll be talking about making plans when starting the first fight of the game. Okay, back to the beginning. Black played a pincer that was maybe more distant than you would usually expect. It's more distant from the white stone at e17 than is usual. It could be said that Black was anticipating a move like this because pressing here at d15 is a very popular move. In the case that white does this, black can crawl at 4, or black could have jumped out at c13. In either case, the fact that black has space to extend at g17, it makes the stone at k17 stronger than it would have been if it was closer to white's wall. So, for instance, in the case that white invades at 9, black's group is relatively strong because it has room to play that extension at 10 and make a base for the black group. So that's the idea with black's pincer at k17. And white played this move. So in this move, white is starting to build the left side instead of pressing and making a wall facing towards the right. And white extended. So since white is building the left side, it was an option for white to play an extension here, in which case black would press at 2, and locally black would have an attack going. So for instance, if white jumped, black would kick here, and the white group would not be alive, and the black group would be strong. So this would be relatively easy, you might say. It would be a fight in which black would be attacking white. So white extended once. I would say black has 2 moves that look reasonably good that improve black's group in the top left corner. So there's this move, which was the game move. In this case, black is taking away white's space, so white will not easily be able to make 2 eyes after black plays here. And it also makes a base for black in the corner. So it's a very basic and easy to understand move, which generally works well. So that's a good idea. So otherwise, it also looks like a good idea to press here. So this would also be locally a good shape, and white would be pressed down on the top side, and black would be making a wall. So first of all, to point out what might happen in this case is after black moved out here, black is moving out between the 2 white groups. However, it gives white time to play an extension on the left side. So this would simplify the fight in that white has made an area on the left side, which will be fairly difficult for black to successfully invade. And so it's just the white group on the top side, which is going to be attacked. So it's not as if white's going to get into a lot of trouble on the top side. So that was not bad, but maybe it wasn't perfect. If we look at the game variation, at this point, black has settled the group in the corner, but there's a weakness there on the top side where white can jump in at m17. So the fact that white has jumped out at h15 has strengthened the white group and is setting up an invasion on the top side. Since black also is interested in invading on the left side, the fact that the top side is gaining in value, it complicates the situation, complicates the position, and makes it relatively more difficult for black. And there's also the fact that later on, if white plays a kosumi at c14, so at this point, it can become a key point, a vital point in shape to attack black's group in the corner. So the fact that white has the threat of a move here can sometimes make black's shape in the corner less than perfect. So that's a weakness in the shape that black has there, because later on white can play the move here, which is a double threat. So it's setting up a double threat there. So white, that's what makes white c14 a very effective move when attacking the corner. So that will interfere with black invading the bottom side. So that's the problem I have with this. In a position like this, where there's two choices that both look reasonably good, but maybe not perfect, I often see a strong player adding a move or so and trying to change the position in a way that makes one of those two moves optimal. So for instance, if black invades here, this would be a very straightforward way if black continued with pressing now to have started something on the left side and enhanced the value of black pressing on the top and splitting the two white groups. So in this variation, black has split the two white groups and is starting to attack white on the left side. So this heats up the fight on the left side, and it reduces the value of the top side because the left side is becoming so important in this variation. White would not really have time to take profit on the top side of the board. So this looks like it's a good way to make the move at 3 the optimal move, or a strong move in this position. This is the variation that I would like to play. Another example of where maybe the kick at d17 could become the ideal move would be, for instance, if black plays away now, maybe here, and if white were to surround the black group. In this case, it would be obvious that the only move would be this one. So this would be a case of black giving white the choice, and black's going to play one of those two moves. So making miai of them, you might say. So if white plays here and black kicks, now the kick was the ideal move, and black lives in the corner and has a position on the left side. So this would also be a feasible way of playing. It can be argued that this is not bad for black. Black does have a peep here to look forward to. And so this would be an even result. Or if white slides here, black, I think black would jump out in this case. But black would be moving out. So in this variation, it would be making miai. But I'll go back and repeat that the variation that I like most is when black presses here. Making the exchange of 1 and 2 has heated up that area and made it sort of ideal for black to be pushing through and splitting the two white groups. So I was slightly dissatisfied with black's choice of kicking here, which locally it's obviously a good move, but it does make things relatively easy for white because white's group is being reinforced and there's these two invasion points. That said, this is another turning point. Black played a low invasion, which is another move that I didn't really like. And the reason is that when you've played on the third line, instead of the fourth line like this, there's usually a reason. So either black is trying to make a life on the side, which is actually problematic because it sort of interferes with black's living shape in the corner sometimes, or black is trying to connect underneath with a move on the second line. And in this case, that's not going to work. So playing on the second line would be a very bad move in this case, because white gets to cut black off here. So this would be a losing variation for black. To show how this move at 2 could sometimes work, I'll go back to this position. So this would be a case where actually the move on the second line could sometimes work. So this is an example of how it's supposed to work. Something like this. So sometimes you can set up a position where black can actually connect up on the second line. So the way this works is if white pushes through and cuts here, this will be a trade where black gets a big corner. So this would be good for black. Or if white tries to peep at 16 first, so this move first, then black can deal with it with this. So this is a pattern you see in some joseki variations. And it's a tesuji to have that move at 15 that sometimes you can play at the last moment to help with the peep at 14. So this would be a way where the slide at 7 is actually working, where black can create a shape that's pretty much connected. So that's how it's supposed to work. And the game, it was not working because if white had played here, then this variation, it gets cut off. So it's probably better to be invading on the fourth line, or actually maybe black should just extend here because the top side is heating up also. So taking away white's base would make this kind of invasion more dangerous for white. So in this case, white's group on the top side is not alive. So maybe white's going to jump to the side here. This would be relatively even. So in this case, black would have the peep at 5 and would be able to capture those 2 stones in the corner. So there would be some profit in that for black. So black invaded on the third line, and white actually invaded here. So starting another fight on the top side. So this was cutting off the 2 white groups, so separating this white group and this white group. Black's trying to attack strongly here. And white played here. So again, it's going to be difficult for this black stone to connect up on the second line. And the fight on the top side is heating up also. So it's really difficult to know where to start fighting at this point. It's become a very complicated game. So black jumped out. And white jumped out. So at this point, the white group here is loosely connected. So this white group is loosely connected up to the left side. And for the time being, this black group it doesn't have much possibility to fight strongly from that stone. On the other hand, white's group on the top side, it looks a bit weak. So black decided to attack that white group first. And white peeped here. So this is a second point where it got very intense, but it looked like black maybe played too strongly with this stone. So black played here and then tried to surround white, but this enclosure, it didn't work very well. So we'll discuss that later, but maybe black could have played here immediately, in which case it would be more difficult for white to break out. So for instance, if white pushes through here, black can answer like this, and the white group is still not, it's not going to die, but it will take some work for white to actually to live. White only has 1 eye for the time being. In the case that white peeps and pushes through and cuts here, black's stones on the right side, they're light enough that black can break through here. And it's going to be difficult for white to get any impressive profit. So this is, in this case, white's group on the top side is getting leaned on also. And it looks like it's a good fight for black. So in the game, black connected and here. So white doesn't have any eyes at all, but black's shape is also pretty weak. So white played here and cut. So this is the shape move. And in the game, it proceeded like this. So black's going to have to spend 1 more move to capture those 2 white stones. So the question is, could black have played more forcefully? There's the variation where black plays an Atari from this side. So if white was breaking out anyway, this would be much better because black would have finished the fight in the center already, and so would have captured the 2 stones. Doesn't really matter what black does next, but even a move, something like this would be a good place to play. Black's already satisfied with a strong position in the center. So that compares favorably with this position, where black still has to play a net to capture the 2 stones. So the problem is what happens if white plays here and black plays like this. So white would peep here, and this gets really exciting, a fight like this. So it's going to be a race to capture, a semi, as we say in Japan. And it looks like it's actually going to be something like a seki. So here, just locally, something like this. It's pretty much a seki. So black would be getting a seki, a good position towards the right side. Of course, this corner is weak, and there's still a fight brewing in the center. So like if we say black plays here and white plays here, then black would have a splendid position on the right side, but that group in the top left corner looks like it's going to die. Otherwise, it's going to be a fight again in the center. So this was probably okay for white. It was maybe a better variation for black too. So in the game, black played here, and it turned out these two white stones were really a headache. So black could capture a net like this, but of course white would have these two forcing moves. Maybe would continue somewhere on the right side. White might slide first. There's an issue with this move in the corner. There's some bad aji here. So it's starting to look a bit difficult for black. And the way white sacrificed those two stones in the center and getting two forcing moves was efficient enough for white. In the game, black played this net, which is also a net. The problem with this net, though, is that later on when white gets a stone here, white can still move out with a move here. So that's going to be an issue later on. And black played here. So if black had just left that for a while, this was always a key shape move against black's group in the corner. And black's group in the corner, it's not going to die. So even if black plays here, it's not going to die, but it's going to be squeezed. It's going to be a bit painful. And there will be white stones. For instance, a white stone here will be forcing against the corner. And that means it's going to be very difficult for the black stone on the left side to make some territory and live on the side. So it makes it that much easier for white to kill that black stone that I've just marked. So black just played here. So this gave black something like 10 points in the corner. So it made a big difference to black's group in the corner. It still has a negative effect on black stone on the side. And is trying to attack the white group on the right. However, white pushes out and is going to do this again. So black really has trouble finding a good way to deal with these two stones without losing momentum in the attack. So for instance, this was a move shown by AlphaGo. But the moment white pushes out here, it starts to get difficult for black. So the black group on the top side is cut off. And it actually looks like it's going to die. So black played here. So white still has this move, but in this case, black's group on the right side, this group here is relatively strong. So he's going to allow white to escape and make it a fight in the center. Black still doesn't really have the option of playing here. Because white would escape, and black's group on the top side would be in trouble. So black pulled back. And so we have fights all over the place. So the group on the top side, the black group here, is not alive. It has one eye so far. And it needs to make one more eye towards the center. White's group on this side, it does have to be careful because it doesn't have a clear two-eye shape yet. But white does have this move sort of making a shape that's pretty close to two eyes. So there's a kind of a potential ko there, which could have a bad effect on black's group in the corner, and some eye shape towards the center, you might say. On this side, there's an eye there. It looks like there's an eye there. And so white does have some potential to make eyes for that group. So it's not so weak, and it is out into the center after all. White's in the group in the center. It doesn't have any eyes, but it's going to be relatively easy, I guess, for white to connect out to strong positions elsewhere. And of course, there's this white group, which is, it still doesn't have two eyes. So for the time being, black is attacking that group. So in the game, white jumped out, and black pushed here, and pushed through here. So here black is trying to get more space towards the center, and white just played away. So this created a weakness here, but white was ready, and this move. This actually, AlphaGo didn't like this move, and the suggested move was white playing here. This was interesting because, well, naturally if black captures the three stones, this gives white a good way to link up. And black would be alive, but white would also have a good connected shape. So if black extends, black could play here and extend, and white would still not be able to connect the 3 stones because this would be this would kill the group on the top side. But white can play here and would have enough room for eyes. So this would be threatening the wedge at K16, and white would have enough room to make 2 eyes. So this was slightly better. White was making sure he was connected. So this worked in that way also. And black pushed out. So at this point, it's actually it actually looks like white is the one who is potentially attacking here, because black has some issues with that group in the top right corner and some issues with the group on the right side, which is not alive yet. And white's enclosing the black group on the right side, so surrounding that group while building on the bottom side. So this was very big, and white covered on the second line. So this was not the optimal move, according to AlphaGo, and white jumps here. So there are some issues with this black group in the corner, because connecting up at P19 is always going to be a ko. So white could connect up at P19, but white doesn't really want black to squeeze from the corner, because then black would have a living shape. So white starts with the jump here. And this is a ko. So white can play here. If black extends down, it's a snapback. So that would not be good. And so black has to play an Atari. And white's going to have a ko threat at N8. So there's a big ko threat there. It's a dangerous ko for black. So this is something that white could have done. And so if you ask an AI, that was not the optimal move. But I think that maybe Deng Yifei was, you might say he was aware that he had a good position. And I think it's valid to be playing moves that you feel comfortable with when you think you see a way to win the game. So that's how I would explain this move. And black's trying to do something inside white's moyo. It's actually a strong attack, actually, against white's moyo. And white's just playing very solidly here, and black actually got to connect out. So locally, this was a success for black. It's still dangerous, but I guess black is pretty much safe enough when black plays this move. So black is connected out and erased some of white's area. But it turns out this was good enough to keep white in the lead. So again, I think it's a case of Deng Yifei maybe not playing the strongest fighting move, but having done a positional judgment and is playing in a fashion that he feels comfortable with, comfortable that he can finish the game. So that's how I understand the way white's playing here. Okay, so here black is trying to attack white's group in the top right area, but the fact that black's corner is not very strong is interfering with that attack. So we're seeing white making some eyes here and trading to the corner. So locally, black did get some profit out of that, but white is now alive. Okay, so it's turning into an endgame. Black really needs one more move to finish living in the lower left corner. This is a problem. It's not alive yet. So if black plays straight down, white can play here. And normally I would say this is just dead. If black plays here, it's like this. Black could cover, in which case white will cut here. And, well, capture half of most of the black group, that is. So something like this. So black played here. And if white had connected, then black would have a living shape with this move. And white played a peep. So and black connected. So this exchange made it difficult for black to make two eyes. So if black had played here, this would have been a ko here in the corner. Black played here. White has to be careful not to cut because this would be alive. And this is another ko. So now they played the ko for a while. So black's idea was that black was losing anyway. So maybe it's more challenging to lose while fighting a ko. So more possibility for white to make some kind of a mistake. And black does have a lot of ko threats. Okay, so that was the final trade, and white did still have a lead. So at this point, LIAN Xiao he resigned, and Deng Yifei won the game. So just to recap, I think the most important part of the game was this fight on the top side, where I talked about blacks making plans, mostly centered on the idea of how black invades the left side. So thank you for watching to the end. Looks like the finals will be played this week also. Maybe I'll try to make a video about one of those games also.